Hey everyone, this is Brett from Link Digital, and today I will be installing a CKAN um, via the Docker method, and I'm going to be basing my installation off the online documentation for CKAN. Um, in the maintainer guide, there's a section on installing CKAN, and there is a third option of installing CKAN, which is with Docker Compose, and I'm going to be following those instructions. So let's get started. I have a brand new Ubuntu 20.04 virtual machine that I created just before, and it's pretty fresh, it's brand new. So let's see how we go. So the first thing we need to do is we need to install all the actual Docker software, which by default it doesn't. We don't have it on Ubuntu 20.04. So the first thing I'll do is I'm just following the instructions that are referenced in the CKAN documentation. Okay, so we need to set up the repository first, and this is what we do next. We install all these libraries that we'll need. Done. Okay, now we need to add the Docker GPG key. Like that. And as you can see, I already had one here, which I'm going to override. And we're going to set up the repo with this command here. Okay, so we'll run the update again, and so we're up to date, and which is always good. And then we'll get then we'll actually install the sudo the Docker software. So there's three libraries that we need to or packages rather we need to install: CE, CLI, and the containerd packages. And there's a lot here actually that gets installed. This will take a little while. Containerd next. It's the last one. Just let you know that I'm running a my local machine is a Mac OS machine. It's a Mac Mini 2018. It's fairly old. and it's running a fairly new version of macOS. 11 point, it's a Big Sur macOS version 11.5.2. Well, okay, that's good. That's actually finished now. Now, what we can do now, we can test the installation by running a container, and it should use all the software we have just installed. So this is in the documentation too. It's the Hello World container, and it's a good one to run to make sure that all of your Docker software has been installed properly and is running correctly. So this should hopefully work. So it's pulling the image down, and we see that it has come up with the string, output the string that we want, which is hello from Docker. So it looks good. It looks like we've actually installed the software okay, and we should be good to go from now on. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to install the Docker Compose software. So let's do that now. And again, this is all in the instructions as well. And so that's all fine. The output of that last command was the Docker Compose binary, or was that a script? I don't know. Anyway, it's in US local bin. Let's just make sure that I think I need to actually change the permissions on that, and then we can run the which Linux command, which basically just outputs where it can find the executable, the Docker Compose executable. So that looks fine. We can run just to make another double check. We can run Docker Compose version just to see what version we're running. It should be the latest version. It's 1.29.2. So the next thing, now that it seems that Docker, the Docker engine and the and Docker Composer are running okay, we can go ahead and install CKAN. And of course, we all know that to do that, we need to install the latest CKAN repo, the master repo. So let's go back to my documentation that I have off on my other screen, and of course we're going to run the git clone. I'm just going to put it in my home directory. It doesn't really matter where it goes, but you might want to do something a little better than that. But I'm going to just run it here because it shouldn't really matter for this. So this step we do when we install CKAN via the source method, and as well as the CKAN as Docker containers. So you got the option of running different versions, of course, of CKAN. I'm just pulling the master, the CKAN master repo down. Okay, so we have now a CKAN directory, and all of the CKAN repo, all the software is under here. So the first thing we do with Docker is we go to the contrib directory. And we see in here there's a Docker directory, and in here is most of the Docker configuration files that we need to run Docker images and containers, apart from one, which is the CKAN container, which is located elsewhere. Now the first thing I need to do is I need to set up the .env file. So I copy the .env.template file, which is there and ready to be used. So .env is the file that needs to be there for Docker Compose to pick up all the environment variables it needs. And so if this is not done, then it just won't work. So I need to create the .env file. And as you can see, it's just a bunch of really simple environment variables that are needed. There's a lot more of them, of course, but these are the ones that we really do need running before we can get it working. Now that that's done, we can build the images and run the containers off the images. And we do this with this command: Docker Compose build the build the images. -d is detached mode, so we have it running kind of in the background, and we're gonna run the containers off the new images, and it's nice to have. Okay, so that's because I need to run this as sudo because it's connecting through to the Docker engine that's running, and I need to be running as a sudo user, kind of root user, to do that by default. Okay, so we see that we've created the Docker network, and the Docker volumes that we need, and there's 3 CKAN volumes. There's a database volume and there's a Solr volume here. Now this will take a while, so bear with me. There's a lot of it basically has to pull down the images, and then it has to run installs on those images, and once the images are there, we run containers off them, so it will take a while. We can see that we're downloading the data pusher image first. It's quiet now. I had my downstairs neighbor practicing his bass guitar just before, and maybe I should have started the video when he was playing. It was actually quite good. Alright, next is the database image that will be installed next. As we can see, we're building the database here. And that's the base image that we are using. Okay, so that one's done. So the next is solar. We're building the solar image. And that's the base image for solar that we're using at the moment. The CKAN image, the CKAN, the image and the container does take the longest. There's a lot going on when that image is created, because it's actually creating the image from scratch, pretty much. Okay, so solar's done. Yeah, solar's done. Well, nearly. It's done now. Okay. And now the Redis container. Which I think is pretty quick. Okay, so Redis was quick. Now the next and the last container, the image, the Docker image that we are doing is the CKAN image, and that should take the longest. It will take the longest. So first of all, it's running off an Ubuntu base image. Those locale warnings, I think, are okay. Looks like we're on the Python libraries now. Creating the CKAN account. So we're running a user out here. It's part of the container. Okay, so now the CKAN software was added into this directory within the image, and now we're actually doing all the installs of the Python libraries and the dependencies for CKAN. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be installed for this actual CKAN container, image and container rather. I can see that's CKAN, the master CKAN 2.10. It says that it's successfully installed. We're running the check the CKAN entry point script now, and we're going to be, here we go. So far this is looking pretty good. So this is creating the actual containers now from the images and running them. Okay, so that's done. We can run this command, docker container, and we can ls and see what containers are running, and there's 5 containers, which is what we want. And we can see that CKAN is listening on port 5000 within the container itself. Now what we can do is, just to verify everything, is I'll bring up. So this is the virtual machine that I created, and I can run a hopefully a browser. Somewhere. I thought I'd be able to find a Firefox browser, but maybe not. Well, maybe we can just run a curl onto the local machine. It's running on port 5000, yeah, so that's what we want. We have CKAN running on 5000, running within the actual CKAN container. So yeah, there you have it. I hope you found this useful. So it does take a while. It really, and I normally run all my Docker stuff locally on my Mac OS machine. I just find it a bit more. But I mean, this works, and this is what is supported in the documentation. So, so there you have it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye.